I'm Alex, 20, and back in late November 2013, I was a stressed-out biology major at UT Knoxville, drowning in midterms and desperate for a reset. My buddy Jake had bailed last minute, so I went solo on what was supposed to be a quick 5-mile loop through the Laurel Creek Trail in the Tennessee Appalachians. Just me, my beat-up North Face pack, and a borrowed GPS that died halfway up. It was one of those brittle, gray November days where the air smells like wet pine and the clouds hang so low they scrape the treetops. I'd been hiking for maybe 2 hours, snapping pics of frost-covered spider webs and pretending I wasn't totally spooked by how quiet the woods got when the wind died, when the sky just collapsed. 1 minute it was drizzling, the next a whiteout rolled in so fast I couldn't see my own boots. My fingers went numb trying to fumble with the map, and I remember thinking, I wasn't supposed to be out here alone. I stumbled blindly through the trees, branches clawing at my jacket like skeletal hands until I spotted it. A rusted hunting blind bolted to an oak barely taller than a phone booth, its wood splintered and gray from years of weather. I practically fell inside, slamming the creaky door behind me, my breath coming in ragged gasps as the wind howled like a freight train outside. The space reeked of mildew and old cigarette smoke, with a dusty cot shoved in the corner and a single shelf holding a moleskine journal. My stomach dropped when I saw it. My moleskine, the one with the chewed corner from when my dog got into my backpack last month. I flipped it open, heart hammering, and there it was. My messy scrawl, dated today, detailing how I tripped over a root at 2:17 p.m., snapped my blue shoelace, and cursed in Spanish. But the last entry froze my blood. You'll find this blind at 3:03 p.m. Don't look behind you. I checked my watch, 3:03 exactly. And the cot. It hadn't been there a second ago. I swear my brain short-circuited right there. The journal's pages felt wrong, too warm, like it had been held against skin, and the ink wasn't even dry. I flipped back to the first page, my hands shaking so bad the book nearly slipped. There it was, Alex Rivera, 20, UT Knoxville, bio major. Trailhead's timestamp, 12:48 p.m. Wore the faded blue beanie Jake gave you for your birthday even though it itches. I touched the beanie on my head, itchy as hell, and the entry kept going. You checked your dead GPS at 1:32 p.m., muttered fuck when the battery died, and kicked that rotten log near the creek. I hadn't told anyone about kicking that log, not even Jake! Outside, the wind dropped suddenly, like the woods were holding their breath, and in that silence I heard it. A slow, wet dragging sound from outside the blind, like something heavy being pulled through snow. I shoved the journal into my pack like it was radioactive, but my fingers brushed the last page again. A new line had appeared, the ink glistening. You're sweating now. Smell that? Like burnt hair. Don't turn around. My neck prickled. I did smell burnt hair, sharp and acrid, even though the blind was freezing. I pressed my back against the door, heart jackhammering against my ribs, and that's when I saw it. Footprints in the thin layer of snow inside the blind, fresh, leading from the cot to right behind me. But I was alone when I came in. I knew it. The dragging sound started again, closer this time, and I caught a glimpse through a crack in the wall, a boot caked in ice, but the laces were mine, the exact frayed blue pair I'd snapped hours ago. The journal tumbled out of my pack, open to a fresh entry, 3:07 p.m. You're breathing too fast, hyperventilating. Look at the cot. I didn't want to, but my eye snapped to it. The mildew-stained mattress was dented, like someone had just stood up from it. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat locked shut like a rusted padlock as I stared at that dent in the cot. It wasn't just there. It was shifting, like someone was sinking into the mattress right now, invisible. The journal in my lap flipped open by itself, pages rustling like dry leaves, and a new line bled onto the paper in my exact slant. 3:08 p.m. You feel the breath on your neck. Cold, smells like snow and copper. And holy shit, I did. A wet, icy puff against my ear that made my scalp prickle, smelling exactly like licking a frozen quarter.
I whipped around, back slamming against the door, and that's when I saw it. A patch of frost on the wall melting in the shape of a face. Not a full face, just eyes. Two hollow spots where the ice had vanished, staring at me. Outside, the dragging sound stopped. Dead silence. My GPS, dead for hours, suddenly buzzed in my pocket. Screen glowing blue. Turn around. He's behind the cot. I didn't want to look. I really didn't.
But my head moved anyway, like my neck was on a string. The cot was empty. Then the journal slapped my leg. Look lower. Beneath the cot, 2 hands. My hands. Same chipped black nail polish from my roommate's girl boss phase last semester. Same scar across the knuckle from that keg stand gone wrong. But these hands were wrong. Blue-veined, fingers too long, pressing into the snow under the cot like they were pushing up from below. The journal flipped again, frantic. 3:09 p.m. You dropped your beanie. Pick it up. See his shoes. I looked down. My blue beanie lay in the snow, and beside it, a single boot print. Fresh. Identical to mine, but the laces were tied in that stupid double knot only I do when I'm nervous. I didn't think. I lunged. My fist crashed into the GPS screen, shattering it with a crack that echoed like a gunshot in the blind. The blue light died, and the journal went berserk, pages flapping like a trapped bird. 3:10 a.m. Wait, wrong time. Don't trust the clock. But it was too late. The hands under the cot twitched, fingers curling into the snow, and that burnt hair stench hit me like a wall. I grabbed the journal, tore the pages out one by one, my words dissolving into wet pulp, and hurled them toward the melting frost face. The hollow eyes widened. Outside, the dragging sound returned, frantic now, like something being dragged upward into the trees. I bolted, didn't look back, didn't breathe, just ran through the whiteout with snow clawing at my face. When I finally burst onto the trailhead parking lot, 3 miles away in 10 minutes, barefoot, one sock on, I collapsed against my truck. My hands were raw, bleeding, but the chipped black nail polish was gone, vanished. Back home, I tore my room apart. No Moleskine, no blue beanie, no GPS. Just a single frayed shoelace on my pillow. The cops called it hypothermia hallucinations. But last winter, hiking that same trail, I found a new hunting blind. Inside, fresh Moleskine. First entry, Alex, 28. You're back. Don't read further, just run. I burned it on the spot. Still smell burnt hair when it snows. Still check my laces. Story 2. I'm Jake Morrison, 42, born and raised in these West Virginia hills. It was January 2019, right after that week-long blizzard dumped 2 feet of snow and froze the creek solid, mostly. Back then, I worked at Haing's Garage fixing busted trucks, lived alone in a creaky cabin with my 12-year-old coonhound buddy, and my biggest worry was whether the woodpile would last the week. That morning, I'd trudged out to check deer traps near Frozen Creek Road, but Buddy bolted ahead, tail tucked, like something in the pines had spooked him. The air was so cold it made my molars ache, and the snow hadn't stopped whispering since dawn. Just that eerie, muffled silence you only get when the whole world's holding its breath. I should have turned back when I saw how thin the ice looked near the bend, but Buddy'd never run off like that before. I followed his paw prints into the trees, kicking up powdery snow that clung to my Carhartt overalls like glitter. When I reached the creek, Buddy stood frozen, literally, on the ice, his fur bristling, nose twitching at the water. "Come on, boy," I yelled, but he didn't even flinch. Ice near the center was black and slick, but closer to shore it had that sickly gray tint that means don't trust it. Then he stepped forward. A sharp crack split the air, and his front legs plunged through. I dropped to my knees, reaching for his collar, but the ice groaned under my weight. Next thing I knew, I was underwater, the cold punching the air from my lungs. The last thing I saw before breaking the surface was Buddy's empty collar floating beside me, and a ripple in the water, like something had ducked underneath. I hauled myself onto the bank, my clothes heavy as concrete, every breath burning like I'd swallowed broken glass. Buddy was gone. No whimpering, no rustling in the pines, just that damn ripple still haunting my vision. I staggered toward where I parked my rusted Ford, but the pull-behind trailer and all were vanished, like the snow had swallowed it whole. My keys? Buried under a neat little mound of fresh powder, right where the driver's side tire should have been, glittering like a taunt. I dug them out with numb fingers, snow melting into my gloves, and that's when I saw the footprints. One set, size 11 Red Wings, my boots, leading into the spruce thicket. But the stride was dead on perfect, like a metronome, no slip or drag, even where the slope got slick. My gut told me to run, but my legs were frozen stiff. I followed them, stumbling like a drunk, snow crunching louder than it should. Every few steps, I'd spin around, half expecting to see myself grinning behind me. But it was just the pines watching with cold eyes.
Their branches heavy with snow like bowed heads. Then the prints stopped cold at a lightning-struck oak, snow undisturbed beyond it, like whoever made 'em just lifted off. My pulse hammered in my ears, but beneath it, a whisper-thin hum, like radio static coming from the tree's hollow. I shoved my hand inside, and my fingers brushed something warm, Buddy's collar, still damp, with a single strand of coarse black hair tangled in the clasp. Not dog hair, not human hair either. It felt slick, like wet rope. I dropped it like it had burned me, and that's when the humming stopped. The woods went dead silent. Even the snow seemed to hold its breath. I turned to bolt, but my boots sank deeper into the snow than before, like the ground was remembering me. When I looked down, my stomach dropped. Fresh footprints right behind mine, same size 11 Red Wings, but the left heel was dented exactly where my old football injury aches every winter. And the snowflakes, they weren't falling, they were rising toward the treetops, slow as dandelion fluff in reverse. My breath hitched when I spotted Buddy's paw prints suddenly reappearing in the snow ahead, wet and fresh, like he'd just passed through. But no dog in sight. The air smelled like burnt wiring and pine sap, thick enough to choke on. I swear I heard my own voice whisper, "Almost home, Jake," but it came from behind the oak, not my throat. I stumbled backward, tripping over a root I knew wasn't there minutes ago. That's when I saw it. My truck's headlights cutting through the trees, parked exactly where I'd left it. Relief flooded me until I noticed the driver's side window was down, though I'd cranked it shut that morning because the seals busted. I crept closer, heart slamming against my ribs, and froze. Inside, the seat was soaked through with creek water, and the steering wheel had a single muddy handprint, my handprint, down to the scar across my knuckle from welding last summer. But the glove compartment hung open, empty, except for Buddy's chewed-up tennis ball. I grabbed my keys, shaking so bad I dropped them twice, and that's when the engine turned over by itself, not a sputter, a smooth, warm purr like it'd been idling for hours. The radio crackled, static, then a child's laugh that sounded exactly like my nephew's. I yanked the door open, half expecting the seat to be empty, but there was Buddy, shivering in the passenger seat, his fur matted with ice and that same black hair. He whined, pressing his cold nose into my palm, but his eyes, they weren't right. Too dark,
like oil pooling in his sockets, and when he blinked, it was sideways, reptile slow. I didn't care. I gunned the engine, tires spinning on the packed snow. The radio cut to that child's laugh again, then a voice, my voice, but hollow, like it was coming through a tin can. "You took too long, Jake. He was hungry." The headlights flickered, and in the glare, I saw the footprints inside the truck bed circling Buddy's spot. I slammed the gas, branches whipping the windshield, but the road kept looping back toward the creek. My hands were numb, but the steering wheel felt warm, alive, pulsing like a heartbeat under my grip. I finally broke the loop by swerving into Hank's garage driveway, skidding to a stop right under the flickering neon sign. Hank bolted inside, tail between his legs. I sprinted after him, bursting through the door, yelling for Hank, but the place was empty, tools scattered like after a fight. Then I saw it. My truck's keys on the counter, still damp, beside a note in my own handwriting. "Don't look in the freezer." My blood turned to slush. I knew that freezer. It held deer meat, Hank's spare parts, and last week's accident victim we'd hauled in for the coroner. I backed toward the door, but the lock clicked shut. The hum from the creek returned, vibrating the soda machine. I didn't look. I grabbed Buddy and kicked the back window out, glass slicing my arm. We ran until the town lights appeared, and I never went back to that creek. Hank called it hypothermia hallucinations, but Buddy still won't go near water. And sometimes when it's snowing hard, I swear I hear size 11 boots crunching inside my house.
Story 3. Back in January 2023, I was desperate for quiet. My name's Jess. I'm a freelance copywriter from Richmond, and after a brutal breakup and a string of sleepless nights, I booked a week-long stay at this off-grid Airbnb deep in the Virginia Appalachians, supposedly perfect for recharging and reconnecting with nature. The listing showed a rustic but cozy log cabin, wood stove, no Wi-Fi, just the kind of isolation I thought I needed. I packed my laptop, a duffel of warm clothes, and enough coffee to last a small army, figuring a week alone in the snow-covered woods would help me finish my novel draft. The drive-in was rough, narrow, icy roads, no cell service past Covington, and by the time I pulled up, the sun was already dipping behind the ridge, casting long shadows through the bare trees. The cabin looked exactly like the photos, except colder, like the kind of cold that seeps into your bones the second you step out of the car. I let myself in with the keypad code, dumped my stuff by the door, and immediately went to light the stove. That's when I noticed it. The smell. Not mildew or wood smoke, but something stale like old sweat and burnt coffee. And then I saw the mug on the counter, half full, cold, but not frozen. Beside it, a folded flannel shirt draped over a chair, damp at the cuffs. My stomach dropped. I checked the bedroom, drawers slightly open, a pair of worn hiking boots by the bed, and in the top drawer, neatly folded thermal underwear with a faint pine-scented detergent smell. That's when I found the guest book on the nightstand. The last entry was scribbled in shaky handwriting. "He's watching from the trees again. Don't look." I stood there frozen, the guest book trembling in my hand, my breath fogging in the icy air even indoors. My first thought was to bolt, grab my keys, drive straight back to civilization, but my car was buried halfway up the driveway in fresh snow from the storm that rolled in overnight. No cell service, no landline, just me, that half-drunk mug of coffee, and the creeping certainty that whoever wrote that note hadn't left willingly. I checked every closet, every corner, even under the bed. Nothing. But outside, through the frost-rimmed window, the woods were unnervingly still. No birds, no wind, just snow-laden branches hanging like claws against a gray sky. I kept catching movement in my peripheral vision, just flickers, but every time I turned there was nothing, just trees, too many trees. By early evening, I had barricaded the door with the wooden chair and dragged the mattress into the kitchen, farthest from the windows. I told myself it was paranoia, that the previous guest probably just skipped out early and the host forgot to clean. But then I heard it, a slow, deliberate scrape against the side of the cabin, like something dragging a branch or a boot. I held my breath. It came again, closer this time, right beneath the bedroom window. My heart hammered so loud I was sure it echoed through the walls. I grabbed the cast-iron skillet from the stove, knuckles white, and crept toward the window. That's when I saw the footprints, fresh ones, leading from the tree line straight to the porch, but none leading away. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the old logs, every gust of wind against the roof sent jolts of adrenaline through me. Around 3 a.m. the scraping sound returned, but this time it was at the front door. Not knocking, not pounding, just scratching, like fingernails on wood, slow and patient. I curled into the corner behind the stove, skillet in hand, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Then came a voice, low, raspy, almost a whisper, murmuring something I couldn't quite make out. It wasn't calling my name. It was worse. It sounded like it was talking to someone, or about me. I swear I heard the word still and then watching. My blood turned to ice. I stayed silent, barely breathing, until the sound faded back into the trees just before dawn. At first light, I threw everything into my duffel, left a frantic note for the host taped to the door, and waded through knee-deep snow to my car. The engine took 3 tries to turn over, and I fishtailed all the way down the mountain, checking my rearview mirror every second. When I finally hit paved road and got a signal, I called the Airbnb host. She sounded confused, said the last guest had checked out 2 weeks prior, that the cabin had been cleaned, and that no one else was scheduled to stay during my dates. But when I described the mug, the clothes, the guest book entry, she went quiet. Then, in a hushed voice, she told me that the previous guest, a man named Dale, had gone missing after his stay the winter before. His truck was found abandoned on the Ridge Road, keys still in the ignition. They never found him. I never went back, and to this day, I don't look too long at tree lines, especially in winter.